What are the different roles in Pokémon Sleep? If you're a new player, you'd probably say, I have no idea. But if you actually make it a month into the game, you'd probably answer berries, ingredients, and skills. But what if I told you there were actually only 2 categories of Pokémon in Sleep? Today I'm going to be discussing the 2 roles in Pokémon Sleep that are even more practically defined than their assigned specialty. I define these categories as direct strength producers and indirect strength producers. Pokémon in the direct strength category are very simple. They're designed to directly increase Snorlax's strength. Berry specialists and skill specialists with skills like Charge Strength M fall into this category. Pokemon in the indirect strength category produce pieces that when later combined create a large amount of strength. Ingredient specialists and skill specialists with cooking related skills fall into this category. Indirect Pokemon also commonly have quotas, amounts of production you need in a set time frame. If you're making a large recipe, you need to produce the ingredients for it 3 times per day, might have to increase the pot size at least 3 times per day, and maybe even raise the tasty chance for each meal. Direct strength Pokemon don't tend to have quotas and just need to generate as much strength as possible in the time remaining after you've met your quotas. Many Pokemon in the game easily fall into one of these 2 categories, but you may already be thinking of some that fall into both. These Pokemon are role hybrids and can see varying levels of success based on their species and build. As far as what defines a hybrid, I classify them into 2 types. The first is Pokemon that substantially offer both direct and indirect strength options from their kit. Substantially is an important qualifier, as though all Pokemon produce berries and thus direct strength, it's not a relatively large contribution from some Pokemon compared to their primary role. The same goes for most Pokemon with the Charge Strength S main skill. The second hybrid classification is Pokemon that focus only on direct or indirect strength, but have cohesive kits that substantially contribute to their role in multiple ways. While you might call these specialty hybrids, I tend to call them cohesion hybrids, since the qualifier of specialty can be confused for role hybrids. Having only 5 Pokemon slots on your team to work with can be very limiting if you're trying to meet production quotas as well as produce a lot of strength, especially if you dedicate a slot to an energy for everyone healer, and role hybrids can help make these limitations more workable, so let's look at some examples. To start, an easy example is berry specialists with cooking related main skills. Steelix and Walrein have ingredient magnet to generate ingredients while they generate berries, Salamence and Tyrantrum have cooking power up to increase pot capacity, and Weavile and Swampert have tasty chance to improve the chance to crit. All 3 of these main skills have skill specialists dedicated to them, but having the main skill on a strength producer instead can sometimes be enough to not need to dedicate an entire team slot solely to the skill. But what about a berry specialist that also makes ingredients? Berry specialists typically prefer berry finding S and nothing but speed, but it's also possible to build a hybrid berry specialist that can generate a decent amount of ingredients. As an example, I'll use the Salamence I rolled. On its own, it has plenty of speed and berry finding S. However, it also has 2 ingredient finder subskills and triple potatoes. With this specific build, this Salamence can function as either a strong berry specialist via the mechanic of sneaky snacking, or produce a meaningful number of potatoes as well as cooking power up if I regularly empty its inventory instead. Despite looking like it has too much ingredient finder for a berry specialist, it has unique dual function depending on how I use it. Berry specialists can have good indirect strength skills, but ingredient specialists can also theoretically have good direct strength skills. However, Quaquaval is just about the only instance of this now with its main skill Charge Strength M. Skill specialists don't tend to be role hybrids as they don't produce a lot of berries or ingredients, and instead singularly focus on using their main skill well. But sometimes a main skill can readily complement the role of the Pokemon. This brings me to cohesion hybrids. Skill specialists that fall into the direct strength categorization tend to like the berry finding S subskill since it's a large strength addition and lends directly to their role as a direct strength producer. Skill specialists with the Charge Strength M and Berry Burst main skills are good examples. Sceptile's actually fast enough that it prefers to be built with the speed of a berry specialist with the main skill as an extra bonus. There are several ingredient focused cohesion hybrids as well. Mawile and Rabombi are ingredient specialists that have ingredient draw main skills that lend directly to the ingredients they already produce. However, skill specialists like Crustle and Sandslash with the ingredient draw main skill can still generate decent amounts of ingredients from their non-skill generation, making them cohesion hybrids as well. For many hybrids, they have a focus with an added bonus provided by another part of their kit, and losing that secondary part wouldn't reduce the viability of the Pokemon to unusable. However, there is a subcategory of the cohesion hybrid where the individual focuses of the kit are necessary for their viability. I call these compression hybrids. The primary example is Cramorant, which falls behind the competition as an oil producer, but makes up for it by having the strong tasty chance main skill. Drampa is in a similar scenario, but is actually competitive with other bean producers if it has triple beans. Compression hybrids can be good on a team if you need all the components they can offer, but often don't produce enough of just one component to fully cover your requirements. Of course, I couldn't talk about hybrids without mentioning the mythical Pokemon with the All specialty. The All specialty is a hybrid by nature, though both current mythicals operate in unique ways. Darkrai is primarily a strength producer, as while it does have the ingredient specialty, its ingredient quantity is balanced around apples as its primary ingredient, which is by far the weakest of the ingredients. The bulk of its contribution will be pure strength from its berries and main skill, though its ingredient production isn't fully negligible. Mew is of course the versatile Pokemon. It has a similar caveat to Darkrai with its primary ingredient being beans, which is also among the weaker of ingredients, but not bad. Because it can change its main skill, Mew can skew more towards a direct or indirect Pokemon depending on how you want to use it, or more realistically, what you happen to roll with your Eureka Seeds. That's all I have to say on hybrids. If you have a favorite Pokemon that does multiple things for you, tell me about it in the comments below. Until next time.